Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Geneva is on Earth. Be wary fighting humans elsewhere. Written by writer Unblocked. I couldn't quite believe the report I'd been given. The human ships that just recently retreated from the planet had apparently jettisoned some kind of escape pod. At first, those that discovered it kept their distance for fear of it being some kind of weapon. Sore loser was one of the many new terms and words added to our lexicon since encountering humankind. We expected that since they'd been unable to take and control the ground in the biosphere, that they would attempt to take it in the sense that we would no longer be able to use it. However, it didn't explode. Eventually, long-range scanners were able to prove with certainty that there was no form of weapon on board, but that it did contain 6 human lifeforms. Everyone who heard that rejoiced. We'd long since learned of humankind's compassion and willingness to sacrifice for their own. We'd even found multiple instances where we were able to just use this against them. To any other race, the idea of 6 individuals would mean next to nothing. These were humans, though, and we immediately started thinking and planning on what we could try to get from them. According to one report, the humans made no attempts to resist arrest. They allowed themselves to be marched, or more accurately, dragged, to the nearby facility where they would be held. The report stated that these humans were pathetically weak, one of which was barely capable of keeping himself upright. This struck me as odd. Humans boasted several impressive qualities, sturdiness and stamina among them. Then again, they did survive a direct collision with the planetary surface. That durability was probably the only thing that kept them alive in the first place. Lastly, the report mentioned that the planet's surface, reacting strangely to these humans, it broke out in rashes near where they coughed, and the few who dropped blood as they walked left agitated veins in their wake. That distressed me somewhat. Our relationship with our planets is the most powerful asset, and if the humans had found a way to use that against us, it would be terrible indeed. I pushed my doubts away, though, as I considered the likelihood of that scenario. Our first planet was the result of a millennia of work, and since then we'd perfected the art of terraforming planetary bodies to meet our needs. There was no way human science had even begun to encroach on a way to crack this code. It wasn't uncommon for the planet to react strangely to humans. This was just the most extreme it had ever been. Humans, after all, produce so many fluids and carry so many forms of bacteria that we still wonder to this day how they evolved to their current point at all. Quarantining the area would likely see it restore within a few solar cycles, though. I was waiting in a room where I had access to feed watching an interrogation chamber. Recently, we'd been able to successfully link a translator with one of the humans' minds. Again, it was reported that they made no attempt to resist. The linking process is uncomfortable to a non-native species, and in all previous instances, the humans fought back. I allowed myself to feel smug as I considered the possibility that these humans understood their situation and how hopeless it was. I brought myself to attention as I saw the door open and the feed and saw 2 of my soldiers enter. Behind them was another leading a human woman. Reports claimed that she was the highest rank amongst the 6. Based on our understanding, she was known as a captain and held a station similar to the one who'd be interrogating her. I became curious as I saw the 3rd soldier enter the room in full biocontainment suit. Immediately, I understood why. The human woman didn't look pathetic, as the reports had stated. She looked like a walking corpse. Her skin, which once may have been described as rich brown, was now pale and cracking. Her eyes were sunken and vacant. There was blood around her mouth, and her entire body was shivering beyond what she could control. She fell into the seat provided, and I could see the soldier who would be questioning her look on in disgust. What is even the point of this? Looks like she'll die right here long before she can provide any interesting info. They were cut off as she started coughing. Nothing serious, but some more blood gathered in the corner of her mouth. "Wanna know why we're here?" Her voice was like a ghostly whisper, as she had to fight to even produce sound. Again, I found myself taking pause as I examined the state she was in. One of the defenses against human warfare we developed was sonic-based protection due to the sheer volume of sound some humans could produce even without their weapons. A stupid mistake, a malfunction. We don't care. We're going to ransom you sad sacks back to your own kind. Speaking of, what do you think that we could get for you? Our research shows that you all have some special fondness for women and the elderly. The lot of you full of parameters almost exclusively. They circled the tablet between them and met her gaze while keeping the distance. It looked familiar from some of the human media we consumed in attempts to research them. "They, won't come back for us." That remark shook me momentarily, not only because of the words she used, but because of how she said them. There was a confidence, a certainty to that statement. Something about it made it easier for her to say than the last time she spoke. My soldier glanced at the camera for a second with a questioning look, but continued on quickly. "Really? Past experience shows that you all care deeply for—" "Tell me," she cut him off, "would you send soldiers back for a bomb after you've dropped it?" She stunned the room and me with that sentence. At first because we weren't exactly sure what she had said, then because we weren't sure what she'd meant. Our silence was broken when she started to cough again. She wasn't able to stifle it this time, as her body heaved and the volume of blood flew through her mouth, splattering against the tablet. The soldiers recoiled, even the one in the containment suit. I was relieved to be in a separate room. Our research had shown us the kinds of sickness humankind was susceptible to. "You mean to say the craft you so elegantly piloted straight into the ground is a bomb?" She shook her head and raised her hand, pointing a bony finger at herself. "You're the weapon." I could see them almost fighting back laughter as disbelief painted its way across their expression. "All of us." There was clearly still fluid in her throat as her voice now came out deeper and with a kind of wet, grating sound. If she didn't look so weak, it would have sounded imposing. "Very well, I will hear you. What, pray tell, is your payload?" They clearly started feeling arrogant again and stepped towards the tablet, but avoided touching it. She looked between the three of them for a few moments and then around the room, finding and looking into the camera somewhat quickly. It wasn't explicitly hidden, but nonetheless, it set me on edge. Without breaking eye contact with the camera, with me, she raised her hand and dropped it into the blood that she had coughed up. She dragged it back towards her, leaving streaks across the tablet's surface before turning and raising her now bloodied hand for all to see. The implication of what that meant sent a profound sense of fear throughout my body. I remember what those first reports said again, that all of these humans looked weak and sick. They coughed, vomited, spit, and bled constantly. That the planet became agitated immediately at their presence. All 6 of us infected with every contagious disease that has affected humanity, plus a few more we cooked up for fun. I felt myself fall weakly into my seat as she spoke. Humankind may not have cracked the code on how to deal with our planets, but with this they may have found a way to break right through it. Fighting on a planet that shares a symbiotic relationship with its inhabitants. Yeah, we weren't going to win this anytime soon. We were honestly probably pretty close to calling this one air. She had to stop as she coughed again, spilling more blood. This time, she seemed to try and aim at the soldiers not wearing a suit. A loss. Congrats. We don't like to do that. My mind was screaming confliction. I was trained to order my soldiers to restrain the prisoner who was making attempts to dominate the room. At the same time, I wanted nothing more than to get out of this room, away from this facility, and off of this planet. Then, you went and broke the rules. You attacked civilians and non-combatants. We gave you a chance to explain yourself. You threw it back at us and gloated. She dragged her other hand through the blood and threw herself at one of the soldiers. She flopped to the ground and they ran towards the door, the look on their face begging me to unlock it. Biological warfare. To do it back home would be the darkest, most egregious sin. But against bastards like you, it's just Tuesday. I unlocked the door and my soldiers fled in the most unprofessional display I had ever seen. I was about to follow them when the blinking light on my side caught my attention. It was a datapad with a new report coming in. The site of the human crash had been quarantined, and the agitation to the planet had quickly gone beyond anything that we'd seen before, though. It was now spreading beyond the quarantine zone, and the soldiers near the site were showing similar symptoms. I literally felt my body and my mind give up as I scratched at an itch. There would be no outrunning this, no surviving this attack. This was far and away the most rapid onset and most severe biological attack that had ever been launched at one of our biospheres. This planet and everyone on it was already as good as dead. One last thought entered my mind as I reached for my weapon and aimed it at my head. Our word for the human term: vengeance. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons: Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Parky, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakul, and Arcadian.